Hello everybody, and welcome to week 4 of our lecture series called Mastering the 10 Factors of Longevity. Let's go over what we've talked about so far. In week number 1, we talked about declining hormone levels. We also talked about insulin resistance and stress hormones. You got to get those factors squared away because they are incredibly important from a longevity standpoint. We also talked about preventing oxidative damage and protecting your DNA. Another thing critically important. Impaired detoxification and damaged proteins, what we talked about in week 3. And then today we're going to talk about reducing chronic inflammation and improving the function of your cardiovascular system and protecting yourself against sticky blood. All right, so chronic inflammation, let's talk about that. Let's get started. When you sprain your ankle, when you have an infection, you get something that's red, it's swollen, it feels warm, and it's painful. That's called acute inflammation. Everybody knows what that is, and all of us have had bouts of that at some point in time or another. All right, chronic inflammation is what they call silent inflammation. Pain-type inflammation is what they call loud inflammation. And it's the silent inflammation, stuff that's really nasty, and it's really going to mess up your longevity statistics if you don't get a handle on it. So things... Chronic inflammation is almost a tissue-wide, body-wide problem. It's sort of all-encompassing. Now, the scientific community has recognized chronic inflammation as the likely starting point for virtually all of our chronic diseases. Heart disease, cancer, Alzheimer's disease, rheumatoid and osteoarthritis, you name it, at the base of these conditions and diseases is this chronic inflammation. Now, at the heart of all this chronic inflammation is some pretty ordinary things. Number 1, it's the standard American diet. Number 2, it's stress. And number 3, it's the overconsumption of bad fats and not consuming enough of what we call the good fats. All right, there's 4 things that work really well. Number 1 is getting those omega-3 fatty acids in your body. You get those by fish oil and flax oil, fish oil being the top priority. Second thing is you have to get control of your blood sugars. They call that glycemic control. The reason is because insulin is related or highly suspect in a lot of these chronic inflammatory conditions, elevated insulin levels, and the only way you get elevated insulin levels is to eat too much sugar, and then you lose your glycemic control. Very bad for this chronic inflammation situation. So you have to get control of that. Also, antioxidants. Antioxidants work really well to help control inflammation. There are certain ones, I'll talk about a few of them. And then there are certain hormones that have anti-inflammatory properties. And if you're low in those hormones, not a bad idea to get them replaced. DHEA is one of them, testosterone in men. And also women now, we're finding out that women who are low in testosterone have all kinds of problems related to that. Inflammation being one of them, so for both men and women you can replace testosterone. And then of course estrogen, that's much more a female hormone. Probably the number 1 place where inflammation gets started is in the gastrointestinal tract, in the gut area. So probiotics, believe it or not, probiotics, those good bacteria, is probably the number 1 thing that you can do to help reduce body-wide chronic silent inflammation. Then the second thing, we talked about this, I think it was in week number 1, an extraordinary antioxidant called curcumin or turmeric extract, amazing anti-inflammatory. Those are the recommendations that I have for you to help you reduce chronic inflammatory problems. All right, now let's talk about your cardiovascular system and this phenomenon of sticky blood. Look, here's the things you got to have in order to live a long time. Number 1, that pump of yours, that heart, needs to work properly. All right. Second thing is your vessels. They need to be clean, of course, on the inside, and they need to be elastic so that they give and take. And then you also need the blood that's flowing through it. We call it slick blood, not sticky blood. You need it flowing through your veins, your arteries, and your capillaries. Okay? So here's the big 3 in order to deal with that. Number 1, hydration. You've got to drink enough water. If someone were to ask me what do I think the number 1 deficiency nutrient is, I would say it's water. Not enough people are drinking adequate amounts of water. So what's going to happen if you don't have enough water, which makes up the predominant element in your blood, is the less water that you have, the thicker it is, and the stickier that it's going to be. The second thing is the idea of a good diet that contains good fats. These fats and oils that I talked about in just a moment ago, omega-3s, flax oil, fish oil, they're the things that help to keep your viscosity of your blood thinner, and so the blood flows better. It works amazingly well, as good if not better than aspirins and some of the other things that the doctors are giving people these days. And then, of course, the third thing is the one that everybody should know about to keep your heart and your cardiovascular system well and healthy, is exercise. So critical. I see so many people who are on this page, the Live to Be 150 page, who are interested or involved in fitness, and a lot of people are in bodybuilding. And I'll tell you this, it's becoming known more and more today, scientifically and otherwise, that resistance training, as far as the overall benefits and effects on your health, more so than cardiovascular training. I knew that 15 years ago with some research that had come out, but now it's beginning to see its day. So those of you that are working out with the weights, especially people that are really take it seriously, not too many things you can do that's better for your cardiovascular system and for your heart. All right, here's what you do. There's lots of nutrients that can be helpful for the cardiovascular system. What tops the list are, number one, something called alpha-lipoic acids. Very, very good for the entire cardiovascular system. And another one is called coenzyme Q10. You probably all heard about that. Great for the cardiovascular system. There's two others. These are herbal extracts or plant extracts. You've heard me talk about this one before, rhodiola rosea. Not only does it increase the force of the heart, increases the volume of how much blood gets emptied, it helps calm down when people have these things called arrhythmias, where the electrical impulses in the heart are not quite right, rhodiola helps with that. It's amazing stuff. And then there's a patented natural medicine out of China, and that's called salvia. And salvia is the Chinese term for it is Dan Shen Pian. And it is, like I said, a patented medicine out of China. You have to go to a specialty store, like a Chinese medicine store, an acupuncturist, in order to get that. But man, if you've got any issues with your cardiovascular system, that is something that can be very, very, very helpful for you. All right, let me give you just a quick prediction, and that is, we all think, or we've been indoctrinated into believing, that heart disease is predominantly caused by fats and saturated fats. You're going to see, as things begin to unfold and time goes on, that heart disease, clogging of our arteries, is predominantly caused by elevated insulin levels, insulin resistance, and excess consumption of sugar. Because what happens is the excess sugar in your body has to be converted to something, because your blood obviously does not like sugar in the blood, right? We know that. That's why diabetics have so many complications. What you're going to find is that so many people are over-consuming and overeating so much sugar. What's happening is that sugar is being converted into a nasty form of saturated fat, and that's where the source of the problem is. That's my prediction. Watch and see. All right. Next week, what we're going to talk about is increasing your immunity, and we're going to talk about protecting and improving your brain, and that's how we'll wrap it up. So until then, live long and prosper.